Welcome to our discussion on AUN Criterion 4 Student Assessment. Today, we will not begin with examination regulations or marking schemes. Instead, let me ask a simple question. Suppose you receive 75 marks for an assignment. What does that number tell you?
It tells me that I did quite well, but honestly, it may not tell me exactly what I did well. Did I understand the subject? Did I communicate clearly? Or did I simply answer the questions in the way my teacher expected?
That is an important observation. As teachers, we sometimes assume that a mark speaks for itself, but 75 marks may combine knowledge, presentation, teamwork, language, and several other things. The number alone may not explain which learning outcomes the student achieved.
Exactly. That gives us the central idea of Criterion 4. Student assessment is not merely about producing marks. It is about producing trustworthy evidence of student learning. The criterion has 7 requirements, but we can understand them through 4 connected functions: design, govern, support learning, and improve the system. Professor Nanda, let us begin with function A. What should teachers consider when designing assessment?
We should begin with the learning outcome. We need to ask, what must the student demonstrate, and what assessment method will make that learning visible? For example, if the outcome is, students can deliver an effective professional presentation, asking them to write definitions of presentation techniques would not be sufficient.
They might know the definitions but still be unable to give a good presentation.
Correct. A more appropriate assessment would require students to deliver a presentation, respond to questions, and perhaps submit supporting materials.
This is the main idea of Requirement 4.1. A variety of assessment methods should be used, but variety does not mean using as many methods as possible. Variety means selecting methods that are fit for the intended learning outcomes. A written examination may be appropriate for some knowledge outcomes. Practical observation may be needed for laboratory skills. A project may be appropriate for problem solving. A presentation may be needed for communication.
But if we use the right method, does that prove that the outcome has been achieved?
Not automatically. This is the difference between Requirements 4.1 and 4.5. Requirement 4.1 asks, is the assessment method appropriate and aligned? Requirement 4.5 asks, what does the assessment evidence show about achievement of the course and program learning outcomes?
Let us take a group presentation as an example. It may be suitable for assessing teamwork, but if every student receives one common group mark, we may not know whether every individual student demonstrated teamwork.
That happens quite often. 1 or 2 students may do most of the work, but everyone receives the same mark.
Exactly. The task may be aligned, but the evidence of individual achievement remains weak. The program may need criteria for contribution, coordination, communication, and problem solving. It may also need peer evidence, teacher observation, or an individual reflection. So function A asks 2 connected questions. Are we assessing the right learning? Can the resulting evidence demonstrate achievement? The second function is govern. It covers requirements 4.2, 4.3, and 4.4. What makes an assessment process feel trustworthy to a student?
I would want to know the task, the marking criteria, and the deadline before I begin. I would also want the rules to be applied consistently. If I believe there is an error, I should know how to ask for a review or appeal.
That is Requirement 4.2. Assessment and appeal policies must be explicit, communicated, and consistently applied. An appeal procedure is not a sign that the assessment system is weak. It is a safeguard protecting both students and the institution.
Requirement 4.3 protects high-stakes decisions, such as progression, repeating a course, and degree completion. Students should not discover a graduation requirement only after failing to meet it. Progression and completion standards must be clear, communicated early, and consistently applied. Requirement 4.4 then asks whether the assessment judgment is valid, reliable, and fair. Let us define these 3 ideas through our presentation example. Validity asks, are we assessing the right thing? If the outcome requires professional presentation performance, students should actually present. A written test about presentations cannot provide sufficient evidence of presentation performance.
The task, criteria, and evidence should all connect to the intended outcome. If critical analysis is an intended outcome, the rubric should assess critical analysis rather than only slide design or speaking confidence.
Reliability asks, are we judging student performance consistently?
Suppose two teachers observe the same presentation. One gives 82 marks and the other gives 60. Would that indicate a reliability problem?
Possibly. Some difference is natural, but a very large difference may show that the teachers interpret the criteria differently. A rubric alone does not guarantee reliability. Teachers may need to discuss the standards, examine sample work, and practice applying the rubric. This is sometimes called marker calibration.
Moderation is also important. It may include reviewing the assessment task before use, comparing sample marking, and examining unusual grade patterns after marking. Fairness asks, do students receive an equitable opportunity to demonstrate learning and a just assessment decision?
Does fairness mean that every student must receive exactly the same treatment?
Not necessarily. Students should be judged according to the same academic standards, but legitimate adjustments may be required to remove irrelevant barriers. For example, an approved adjustment for a student with a disability can support fairness without lowering the intended academic standard.
Fairness also requires clear instructions, accessible criteria, appropriate resources, consistent rules and procedures for absence, illness, reassessment, and appeal.
We can remember the three concepts in this way. Validity. Are we assessing the right thing? Reliability. Are we judging it consistently? Fairness. Are students given an equitable opportunity and a just judgment? A reliable assessment is not automatically valid. We can consistently measure the wrong thing. Likewise, a valid task can still be implemented unfairly. The third function relates to requirement 4.6, timely feedback. May, what kind of feedback helps you improve?
Feedback is useful when it tells me what I did well, what the problem is, and what I should do differently next time. A mark alone does not help very much.
Teachers sometimes write comments such as good, weak analysis, or needs improvement. These comments identify a judgment but do not necessarily guide action.
Effective feedback should be timely, specific, understandable, actionable, and connected to future learning. Suppose students give 3 presentations during a semester. Feedback on presentation 1 should help improve presentation 2. Feedback on presentation 2 should help improve presentation 3.
If I receive all the comments after presentation 3, the feedback may be detailed, but I cannot use it during the course.
Exactly. It may meet an administrative deadline, but it is educationally too late. Function C creates the student learning cycle. Performance leads to feedback. Feedback leads to reflection and revision. Reflection and revision lead to improved performance. Our fourth function is requirement. 4.7, continuous review and improvement. Professor Nanda, what assessment evidence should program teams review?
We should consider more than pass rates. We can examine student work, CLO and PLO achievement, moderation findings, marker differences, appeals, feedback, turnaround time, and student experience. Employer and internship feedback may also show whether assessment remains professionally relevant.
Suppose students pass a communication course, but internship supervisors report that they struggle with workplace presentations. What should the program do?
First, investigate the cause. Perhaps the course assesses theoretical knowledge more than actual performance. The program could introduce authentic presentations, audience questions, formative rehearsal, and an aligned rubric.
Would introducing the new presentation be enough to claim improvement?
No. That demonstrates change, not necessarily improvement. The program must implement the change and then evaluate its effect. Did presentation performance improve? Did students use feedback? Did internship supervisors observe better communication? The complete improvement trail is evidence diagnosis, change implementation effect evaluation, next decision. Collecting feedback is only an input. Changing a task is an action. Improvement becomes credible when the effect of the change is evaluated.
So, requirements 4.6 and 4.7 both involve improvement, but at different levels?
Precisely. Requirement 4.6 improves the student's next performance. Requirement 4.7 improves the program's next assessment cycle.
In the first cycle, students act on feedback. In the second cycle, lecturers and program management act on assessment evidence. A strong program needs both cycles.
Let us return to our opening question. When a student receives 75 marks, can we trust what that number represents?
We can trust it more when the assessment is aligned with the learning outcome. The criteria are clear, the marking is reliable, students are treated fairly, and the evidence shows what they have achieved.
And assessment should not end with the mark. Feedback should help the student improve, while assessment evidence should help the program improve its system.
That is the core message of Criterion 4. Design assessment to measure intended learning. Govern it to protect credible and fair decisions. Use feedback to support student improvement. Review evidence to improve the assessment system. Criterion 3 asks how students learn. Criterion 4 asks how we know and whether that judgment can be trusted. Thank you for listening.